everyone, and welcome back. It's Gail. So glad you could join me. In this segment, I will be covering the remainder of the Form 1040, specifically payments and refundable credits down through the end of the tax return. That section of the 1040 are lines 25 through 38. So, without further ado, let's jump right into the next slide, displaying both the 1040 page 1 and page 2. So we've come a long way and we're almost there. Page 1 of Form 1040 and page 2 are reflected in the slides. We ended the last segment with the total tax line. That is line 24 on page 2 of the 1040. This slide begins with line 24, total tax. Line 25 points to the federal income tax withheld. This line has an A, B, and a C. A references the withheld taxes from forms W-2. B references the withheld taxes from the forms 1099. And C refers to other types of incomes from which federal income tax may have been withheld. Those types of incomes could be from gambling or lottery winnings, etc. Line 25D is the total of those three lines. Let's just take a quick peek back at the Form W-2 and 1099 miscellaneous. As the arrows are indicating, federal income tax withheld can be in a different box on each source document. The arrows indicate where to find the federal income tax withheld on these two different source documents. The highlighted areas is the named source document. You will need to thoroughly review the source document before any input into TaxSlayer software to ensure that you are inputting the correct amount from the correct source document. Back to Form 1040, line 25D. Once again, this is the total of lines 25A, B, and C. Line 26 refers to estimated tax payments and amounts applied from the previous year's tax return. Let me give you a little insight. Taxpayers can and should have federal income taxes withheld by the payers of the income. However, taxpayers who are self-employed should estimate what their taxes are going to be in the upcoming year and send to the IRS a portion of that estimated tax periodically. Additionally, the taxpayer can have the previous year's tax refund applied to the current year's tax liability. As you can see, there are a few different ways the taxpayer can use to help cover their tax liability. VITA clients typically don't have a problem letting the tax preparer know what their estimated tax payments are or that they've had their prior year's refund applied. Once again, the Form 13614C, Part 5 references estimated taxes. I hope you're getting how important it is to review the taxpayer's Form 13614C for important taxpayer information. Line 27, Earned Income Credit. This credit is tied to the taxpayer's earned income, such as wages, self-employment income, etc., as well as some other considerations. Publication 4012, Tab I, is devoted to this topic. Although TaxSlayer software automatically calculates this credit based upon information already input into the software, tax preparers should be prepared to respond to the taxpayer's questions in this area. Once again, publication 4012, Tab I. This, by the way, is a refundable credit. Moving on to line 28, additional child tax credit. Attached Schedule 8812. Another refundable credit applies to taxpayers who have a qualifying child or children. In order to qualify for this credit, both the taxpayer as well as the qualifying child or children must all have valid Social Security numbers. Taxpayers with I-10s do not qualify for this credit. The credit is automatically calculated by TaxSlayer software based upon the information already input. TaxSlayer will also generate the Form 8812 if required to be attached to the return. Line 29, the American Opportunity Credit from Form 8863. I've talked about this education credit earlier in the non-refundable credits segment. Recall Schedule 3, Line 7? That line included the non-refundable education credit amount from Form 8863, Line 19. Please note that education credit has both a non-refundable part as well as a refundable part. The refundable credit directs us back to the Form 8863, Line 8, as opposed to Line 19. After completing the education credit screen in the TaxSlayer software, the software drops the applicable amounts on the correct lines of the Form 8863. Line 30 is the Recovery Rebate Credit line. This credit is tied to the 2020 Economic Impact Payment, except that the credit eligibility and the credit amounts are based on the 2020 tax year information. Any eligible individual who did not receive the full amount of the recovery rebate as an advance payment, also known as economic impact payment, can claim the recovery rebate credit on their 2020 1040 tax return. This form can also be used by people who are not normally required to file a tax return but are eligible for the credit. The credit amounts were $1,200 per eligible taxpayer and an additional $500 per eligible qualifying child. I always go back to the Form 13614C. This question can be found in Part 5, Line 10. If the taxpayer's answer is yes, they could be entitled to recovery rebate credit. The tax preparer will need to interview or question the taxpayer further to determine if they already received the EIP, economic impact payment, as well as their eligibility for the recovery rebate credit. Generally, you are eligible to claim the recovery rebate credit if in 2020 you were a United States citizen or United States resident alien, was not a dependent of another taxpayer, and have a valid Social Security number. Recovery rebate credit is authorized by the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, which is the CARES Act. See publication 4012, page H-8 for additional information. Now, line 32 is the amount from Schedule 3, line 13. Do you recall what Schedule 3 is? Let's just take a quick look at it right now. This slide shows both the Schedule 3 as well as the Form 8962. In an earlier segment on non-refundable credits, we referenced Schedule 3, Part 1. In taking a closer look at Schedule 3, it also contains a Part 2, Other Payments and Refundable Credits. Line 8 will generally be the VITA client. Line 8 is Net Premium Tax Credit, attached Form 8962. We've seen references to the 8962 in an earlier segment on tax and non-refundable credits. In that lesson, I said that the taxpayer could possibly have excess premium tax credits because of paying a lesser amount of health insurance obtained through the marketplace. Well, on the flip side of that, it could be that the taxpayer paid too much for marketplace health insurance during the year, based upon what the taxpayer communicated to the marketplace when the health insurance was obtained. If that happens, then the taxpayer may be entitled to what's called net premium tax credit. TaxSlayer software calculates the correct amount based on what's been input from the Form 1095A from the marketplace. Notice arrows to line 26 from the Form 8962, the second sentence referencing Schedule 3, line 8. Remember, if the tax preparer is inputting the correct information to TaxSlayer initially, the correct amounts will flow through to the correct schedules and then onto the correct line of the Form 1040. Take another look at Schedule 3, Part 2. Line 8 is generally the only line that affects the typical VITA client. Line 13 is the total refundable credits line, which then drops to the Form 1040, line 31, which is where we started from. As Part 2 indicates, this is a refundable credit or a money in the pocket type of credit. All things premium tax credit is found in the publication 4012, pages H11 through H-18. Now, back to page 2 of the Form 1040. We've just covered line 31. Line 32 represents other payments and refundable credits, that is the totals from lines 27 through 31, which includes the Earned Income Credit, the Additional Child Tax Credit, American Opportunity Credit, Recovery Rebate Credit, and the Net Premium Tax Credit. Line 33 represents the totals from lines 25, which were the federal income tax withheld amounts, and line 26, which was the estimated tax payment and the previous year's tax refund applied. Yay! We've now accounted for all of the refundable credits and other payments amount. Now it's time to figure out if the credit amounts exceed the tax amount, resulting in a refund, or, on the flip, taxes exceeded the credit amount, resulting in a balance due to the taxpayer, meaning the taxpayer did not have enough credits to take care of their tax liability. Line 34. If the total payments, line 33, exceed the total tax, line 24, then the taxpayer has overpaid their taxes, therefore entitled to a refund. Line 35 represents the refund amount. The taxpayer can receive their entire refund as a lump sum amount, or they may choose to split their refund into 3 separate banking accounts, or choose to even purchase savings bonds. If the taxpayer chooses to split their refund, another Form 8888, will need to be completed. This again is a question on the Form 13614C intake interview form, which the taxpayer may have responded to. Reviewing the Form 13614C is critical to ensure that the taxpayer's tax return is correctly prepared. Whichever method the taxpayer chooses to receive the refund, the taxpayer will need to present to the tax preparer the correct routing and account banking information for direct deposit. The taxpayer can also elect to have a paper refund sent through the mail. Line 36 is where the taxpayer may choose to have part or all of their current year's refund applied to next year's tax return. By the way, all of this is accomplished through the TaxSlayer software. That covers the refund issue. But what about the balance due issue, where the taxpayer owes the IRS because they didn't have enough credits to take care of the taxed amount? Line 37. Once again, we return to lines 33 and 24. If line 33 is less than line 24, the taxpayer has a balance due. The taxpayer may choose to pay through direct debit method, or they may choose to pay in installments with the payment agreement, or they may choose to pay the full amount by the due date of the tax return, generally April the 15th. This issue can be resolved through the TaxSlayer software as well. One more little thing before I'm done. Take a look at the highlighted areas, which references an identity protection PIN number. Back to the Form 13614C, line 11 asks the identity theft question for the taxpayer, the spouse, or the dependents. When reviewing the Form 13614C and line 11 is yes, be sure to ask for the IRS letter referencing the IRS issued identity theft PIN number. Now I'm really done. Stick a fork in me. It's been my pleasure, and I hope that you've picked up some useful information from these overview segments. Remember, M-A-U-R-I, Mari. M, mirror the paper document into the software. All electronically submitted returns are submitted through TaxSlayer Pro Online software. Use publication 4012 and 4491. They are your friend. Read all the applicable notes on the page. Interview the taxpayer using their completed Form 13614C. Now, y'all, I just made up that acronym. Drop the mic. I do appreciate you visiting with me throughout these segments of learning. I hope you learned something that you can use during this filing season. It's been my pleasure. And once again, from my family, Foundations Community, and the Dallas Community Tax Centers, to all of the VITA volunteers, welcome to the VITA family. Take care, everyone.